My name is Elise, and I'm 34 years old. For 6 years, I believed I had the perfect marriage with my husband Andrew. We had built a beautiful life together, and I even had an unusually close relationship with my mother-in-law, Patricia. Last Tuesday, I stopped by Patricia's house with freshly baked cookies, thinking I'd brighten her day. Instead, I overheard a conversation that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage and the people I trusted most. Before I continue my story, if you're watching this video, please let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories of betrayal and resilience. I met Andrew at a charity gala 8 years ago. I was representing my marketing firm, and he was there supporting a legal aid foundation through his law practice. The moment our eyes met across the room, I felt something I had never experienced before. It wasn't just physical attraction, though. Andrew was undeniably handsome, with his dark hair and warm brown eyes. There was an immediate connection, a sense that we understood each other without words. He approached me with a glass of champagne and a disarming smile. "This event could use some livening up," he said, and I laughed, relieved. Someone else found the stiff formality as tedious as I did. We spent the entire evening in conversation, ignoring the auction and speeches. By the end of the night, I had his number and a fluttering anticipation I hadn't felt in years. Our romance moved quickly. Andrew was everything I had been looking for without realizing it. Intelligent, ambitious, kind, and surprisingly funny once you got past his professional exterior. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. He proposed on our 1-year anniversary with a vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother. The wedding followed a year later, a beautiful ceremony in a garden venue with 100 of our closest friends and family. After the honeymoon, we settled into our life together. My career at the marketing agency was taking off with a recent promotion to Executive Director of Client Relations. Andrew was building his reputation at his law firm, specializing in corporate law. We complemented each other perfectly, both understanding the demands of professional success while maintaining our relationship as the priority. 2 years into our marriage, we purchased our dream home. A charming colonial in a peaceful suburb with excellent schools for the family we planned to have. The 4-bedroom house with a spacious backyard was more than we needed at the time, but we were investing in our future. I spent weekends painting walls and picking out furniture, creating the perfect space for us. When it came to my mother-in-law, Patricia, I had initially approached our relationship with caution. All my friends had shared horror stories about their in-laws, especially mothers-in-law. Patricia was Andrew's only living parent, his father having passed away when he was in college. I expected the typical possessive behavior, the subtle criticism, the sense that no woman would ever be good enough for her son. What I found instead was surprising. Patricia welcomed me into the family with genuine warmth. A retired teacher with a vibrant personality, she made efforts to connect with me based on our interests rather than just through Andrew. She never overstepped boundaries or offered unsolicited advice about our marriage. "I've been waiting for Andrew to find someone like you," she told me after our engagement, "someone with her own passions and strength. You balance each other beautifully." Our relationship grew independently of Andrew. We established a tradition of Sunday dinners at her home, where she taught me family recipes and shared stories of Andrew's childhood. We went shopping together, discovering a shared love for vintage stores and local craft markets. When I mentioned wanting to start a garden, Patricia, an experienced gardener, spent weekends helping me plant and maintain vegetables and flowers. 2 years ago, when I suffered a miscarriage at 11 weeks, Patricia was my rock. Andrew tried his best to support me, but he processed grief through work and stoicism. Patricia understood the physical and emotional pain in a way only another woman could. She stayed with us for a week, making sure I ate and rested while giving me space to grieve. "The path to motherhood isn't always straight," she said, sharing her own struggles before having Andrew. "But you're strong, Elise. Whatever happens, you'll find your way through this." Her support during that difficult time cemented our bond. I came to see her not just as my husband's mother, but as a friend and confidant. I felt lucky to have such a positive relationship with my mother-in-law, something many of my friends envied. In recent months, I had noticed subtle changes in Andrew's behavior. Nothing alarming, just small shifts that registered somewhere in the back of my mind. He was working later than usual, coming home after I was already in bed. When present, he seemed distracted, checking his phone more frequently and stepping out to take calls. He became protective of his phone, something that had never been an issue before. Once I picked up his phone to order dinner when mine was charging, and he nearly snatched it from my hand. He apologized immediately, blaming stress from a difficult case, but the moment lingered with me. There were other signs too. Conversations about our finances became briefer. When I suggested we review our investments together, something we used to do quarterly, he assured me everything was on track and he had it handled. New golf clubs appeared along with an expensive watch he claimed was a gift from a grateful client. Each time doubt surfaced, I pushed them away. We had built our relationship on honesty and trust. We had weathered difficulties together, from career setbacks to the pain of losing a pregnancy. Our foundation was too strong for secrets, I believed. Whatever was happening, we would address it together when Andrew was ready to talk. Patricia hadn't mentioned noticing any changes in Andrew. During our weekly dinners and regular calls, she was the same warm, attentive person. If anything, she seemed more interested in my work and well-being, asking thoughtful questions about my projects and suggesting weekend trips to help me relax. If someone had told me then what I was about to discover, I would never have believed them. In my mind, Andrew and Patricia were the two people I trusted most in the world. The thought that they would betray that trust was inconceivable, but as I would soon learn, the people closest to us sometimes keep the most devastating secrets. The Tuesday that changed everything started like any other workday. I woke at 6, squeezed in a quick run, and was at my desk by 8:30. The morning was packed with back-to-back client calls, including one particularly difficult client who was unhappy with our latest campaign proposals. By lunchtime, I had a pounding headache and a knot of tension between my shoulders. I need to get out of this office, I told my assistant after the 4th revision request from the same client. I'm taking the afternoon to work remotely. On my drive home, I passed my favorite bakery and had a sudden urge to do something nice for Patricia. She had mentioned feeling a bit under the weather when we spoke on Sunday. Freshly baked chocolate chip cookies might brighten her day, I thought. Patricia had a notorious sweet tooth, and chocolate chip cookies were her weakness. I picked up the ingredients and decided to bake them at home before taking them to her. The process of measuring, mixing, and watching the cookies rise in the oven helped settle my frazzled nerves. The familiar routine was therapeutic, and knowing they would make Patricia smile added an extra layer of satisfaction. The cookies came out perfect golden around the edges, with chocolate chips still warm and melty. I arranged them in a decorative tin Patricia had given me last Christmas and headed to her house. She lived about 20 minutes away in a cozy ranch-style home where she had raised Andrew as a single mother. It was a beautiful spring afternoon with cherry blossoms lining the streets of Patricia's neighborhood. As I turned onto her street, something caught my attention. Andrew's sleek black sedan was parked in her driveway. This struck me as odd. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Andrew was usually at his office downtown until at least 7. For a moment, I wondered if I should leave and come back another time. Maybe they were having a private mother-son conversation. But then I dismissed the thought. I was family too, and there was nothing unusual about stopping by. Besides, I had cookies. I parked behind Andrew's car and grabbed the tin. As I approached the front door, I realized I could surprise both of them. I used the key Patricia had given me years ago, turning it quietly in the lock. The house was silent as I stepped inside, the familiar scent of Patricia's lavender candles welcoming me. I was about to call out when I heard voices coming from the kitchen at the back of the house. They were speaking in hushed, urgent tones that immediately made me pause. Something about their cadence suggested this wasn't a casual conversation. My first thought was that they might be planning a surprise for me. My birthday was still months away, but our anniversary was approaching. The thought made me smile, and I took a few steps closer, expecting to overhear plans for a party or a trip. "You need to tell her soon, Andrew." Patricia's voice was clear now, tense in a way I had never heard before. "This has gone on too long." I froze in the hallway, cookies clutched to my chest. "I can't hurt Elise like that," Andrew responded, his voice strained. "We need more time to figure this out." "The longer you wait, the worse it will be when she finds out about the money," Patricia said firmly. "Do you think she won't notice when the mortgage payment bounces or when the credit card gets declined?" My heart began racing, blood pounding in my ears so loudly I worried they might hear it. Money, mortgage payments. What was happening? "I'll get it back," Andrew insisted. "The new investment is a sure thing. Within 3 months, we'll have recovered everything and more." Patricia sighed heavily. "That's what you said about the last one and the one before that. Andrew, you need help. This gambling has gotten out of control." Gambling. The word hit me like a physical blow. Andrew didn't gamble. He was cautious, responsible, the one who insisted we build a solid emergency fund before making major purchases. "It's not gambling, Mom. It's calculated investing with temporary setbacks. Calculated investing doesn't leave you $160,000 in debt." Patricia's voice rose sharply before dropping back to a whisper. I've helped you hide this from Elise as long as I could because I believed you would stop. But you're not stopping, and now you've taken money from your joint accounts. She's going to find out. $160,000. The number echoed in my head, impossible and yet somehow real. My stomach lurched and I felt suddenly dizzy. I clutched the wall for support, barely managing to keep hold of the cookie tin. Just give me one more month, Andrew pleaded. I have a system now. The online poker tournament this weekend has $1 million prize pool. I only need to place in the top 10. Listen to yourself, Patricia hissed, man. This is exactly what your father said before he lost our house. I won't watch you destroy your life, and Elise is the same way. Either you tell her everything this week or I will. I couldn't listen anymore. My chest felt tight, each breath painful as the implications washed over me. Andrew had a gambling problem. He had taken money from our accounts, and Patricia, the woman I considered a second mother, had been helping him hide it from me. I backed away as silently as I could, careful not to let the floorboards creak. The front door seemed miles away, but somehow I made it outside. I closed it with the gentlest click, praying they wouldn't hear. Back in my car, I sat shaking the cookie tin now on the passenger seat. The chocolate chip cookies, once a gesture of affection, now seemed painfully naive. I started the engine with trembling hands and drove away before either of them could discover I had been there. My mind was a hurricane of questions. How long had this been happening? How much of our savings was actually gone? And perhaps most painfully, how could Patricia, who had held me as I cried over my miscarriage, keep such a devastating secret from me as I drove aimlessly through suburban streets? My shock began to crystallize into something sharper, a sense of betrayal so acute it felt like physical pain. Not just from Andrew, whose addiction I might have understood with time, but from Patricia. She had positioned herself as my ally while actively undermining our marriage. I pulled into a park several miles from Patricia's house and tried to steady my breathing. I needed to think clearly. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before confronting either of them. The cookies sat beside me, their sweet scent now sickening. I rolled down the window, gulping fresh air, and tried to process what had just happened. In a matter of minutes, my entire understanding of my marriage had been shattered, and I had no idea how to put the pieces back together, or if I even wanted to try. After leaving the park, I drove without purpose, my mind racing with fragments of financial discussions Andrew and I had over the years. We had always maintained joint accounts, believing transparency was the foundation of trust in a marriage. Our system was simple but effective. We each had personal accounts for discretionary spending, but our salaries were deposited into joint checking and savings accounts, from which we paid bills and made investments. Andrew had taken the lead on our investment strategy, setting up our retirement accounts and a portfolio of stocks and mutual funds. I had been comfortable with this arrangement. With my marketing background and his law degree with a minor in finance, it made sense for him to handle the more complex aspects of our financial planning. Now that decision felt like a terrible mistake. I recalled conversations about major purchases over the past year. The expensive watch Andrew claimed was a gift from a client. The new golf clubs he won in a work tournament. The weekend trips to conferences that now seemed suspiciously timed with major sporting events. All lies carefully constructed to hide his addiction. What else had he lied about? I wondered if the late nights at the office were really spent hunched over a poker table or glued to online gambling sites. Had our friends known? Had his colleagues? How many people had seen the signs while I remained oblivious? Eventually, I found myself parking outside a coffee shop I frequented. The familiar setting offered a small comfort as I ordered an Americano and found a quiet corner table. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and opened our banking app. The joint checking account showed a balance much lower than I expected. Scrolling through recent transactions, I noticed several large withdrawals, each labelled as a transfer to our investment account. Nothing unusual on the surface, but with new context deeply suspicious. I logged into our savings account next. The balance there made my stomach drop. We should have had nearly $60,000 set aside for emergencies and future plans. The account showed less than $15,000 remaining. There were regular transfers going to an account number I didn't recognize. Some for $3,000, others for $5,000 or $10,000. The most recent withdrawal had been just 3 days ago for $12,000. $12,000 that Andrew had taken without discussion or consent. With growing horror, I checked our investment portfolio. Many of our positions showed recent liquidations, with funds withdrawn rather than reinvested. Our retirement accounts appeared intact, but only because they carried heavy penalties for early withdrawal. Even with those penalties, would Andrew eventually raid those too? I needed support. Someone to help me think clearly through the shock. I called Megan, my closest friend since college. She picked up on the second ring. Elise, what's up? Thought you were working today. Megan? My voice cracked. I need to talk. Something's happened. Are you okay? You sound terrible. I'm at Cornerstone Coffee. Can you meet me? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't move. True to her word, Megan arrived quickly, her face concerned as she slid into the seat across from me. I told her everything from overhearing the conversation to discovering the financial discrepancies. Oh my God, Elise, I can't believe Patricia knew about this, Megan said when I finished. After everything, the way she's acted like your best friend, that's almost worse than Andrew's gambling. I know, I whispered, wiping away tears that wouldn't stop coming. I trusted her completely. Maybe there's some explanation, Megan suggested, always the optimist. Maybe they weren't talking about what you think. Could you have misunderstood? I shook my head. The numbers don't lie, Megan. Our savings are nearly gone. There are withdrawals I can't explain. Patricia specifically mentioned $160,000 in debt. Megan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. What are you going to do? That was the question I had been avoiding. The rational part of me knew I should confront Andrew immediately, but another part wanted more information first. If I confronted him now, he might hide evidence, making it harder to understand the full scope of the problem. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I talk to him, I said finally. I need to see how bad it really is. That makes sense, Megan agreed. Do you want to stay with me tonight? I considered it, but shook my head. No, if I don't come home, he'll know something's wrong. I need to act normal until I have all the facts. Can you do that? Pretend everything's fine. It was a fair question. I had never been good at hiding my emotions, especially from Andrew, who knew me better than anyone. Or at least I had thought he did. I have to try, just for a few days while I figure this out. Megan looked skeptical but nodded. Call me anytime, day or night. Promise? I promise. As I drove home, I made a plan. I would continue investigating quietly, gathering as much information as possible. Only when I had the complete picture would I confront Andrew and Patricia. The thought of facing them both, of acknowledging the dual betrayal, made me physically ill. But I would do it. I needed answers, and I deserved the truth. That night, when Andrew came home, I forced myself to act normal. We ate dinner together, discussing our days as if mine hadn't been shattered by revelations of his deceit. I watched him closely, searching for signs I should have seen before. The slight tension in his shoulders when I mentioned a bill payment. The way his eyes slid away when he mentioned a work meeting that had run late. How had I missed these tells? How had I been so willingly blind to the lies? As we prepared for bed, Andrew kissed me goodnight, and it took everything in me not to flinch away. The man beside me was a stranger, and I had never felt more alone. The next morning, I returned to work, forcing myself through meetings and client calls with a professionalism that felt surreal given the chaos in my personal life. During lunch, instead of eating, I visited our bank. The branch manager, Sarah, had handled our accounts for years and greeted me warmly. Elise, what brings you in today? Everything okay with the accounts? Just checking on a few things, I said casually. Can we talk privately? In her office, I explained that I was reviewing our financial situation and had some questions. I didn't mention my suspicions about Andrew, but Sarah's expression grew increasingly uncomfortable as I asked specific questions about recent transactions and account changes. I see you're asking about the transfers to account ending in 4721, she said carefully. That's the separate account Mr. Mitchell opened last month. A separate account I knew nothing about. My heart sank further, but I kept my expression neutral. Yes, I was just confirming the details. And the mortgage information, Sarah typed something into her computer, then paused. I'm showing 2 mortgages on your property. The original one you both signed for and a home equity line of credit taken out 3 months ago. A second mortgage, I said flatly. Yes. Sarah looked increasingly uncomfortable. For $120,000, it shows regular withdrawals against the credit line. It's currently about 80% utilised. A second mortgage on our home taken without my knowledge. Was that even legal? My name was on the deed too. I don't remember signing for that, I said, watching her reaction carefully. Sarah shifted in her seat. I wasn't here for that transaction. Let me pull the documentation. After some searching, she turned the monitor toward me. There was my signature on the documents, except it wasn't my signature. Not exactly. It was close enough that a bank employee who didn't know me well might accept it, But Sarah had seen my signature dozens of times. Is there anything else unusual about our accounts that I should know about? I asked. Sarah hesitated, professional discretion warring with obvious concern. I should really discuss this with both account holders present. Sarah, I said quietly, I think you and I both know that signature isn't mine. I need to understand what's happening with my finances. Her professionalism cracked slightly. The credit cards have high balances, near the limits, and there have been several cash advances in the past few months. After leaving the bank with copies of all the documents I had legal access to, I sat in my car feeling numb. The situation was worse than I had imagined. Not only had Andrew gambled away our savings, but he had also taken a second mortgage on our home and maxed out our credit cards. And somehow, he had managed to forge my signature on legal documents. That afternoon, I reviewed our credit card statements online. The charges painted a disturbing picture. Luxury hotel stays in Las Vegas and Atlantic City on weekends when Andrew claimed to be at legal conferences. Cash withdrawals from casino ATMs. Charges at high-end restaurants for tables of 4 or 6 people, suggesting he was entertaining or being entertained. There were also several charges from jewelry stores that never resulted in gifts for me. Was he buying for someone else? The thought added another layer of betrayal to consider. I contacted Jason, a friend who worked as a private investigator, explaining I needed advice on a sensitive financial matter. We met after work at a bar far from both our offices. If what you suspect is true, Jason said after I outlined the situation, you need to protect yourself immediately. Financial infidelity can be as devastating as sexual infidelity, sometimes worse. What should I do? Document everything. Set up monitoring on all your accounts to alert you to any new activity. Check your credit report for any accounts you don't recognize. And consult a lawyer, Elise, not one from Andrew's firm. I nodded, the reality of my situation settling heavily. Do you think he's having an affair too? Jason sighed. Gambling and affairs often go together. The same secrecy skills apply to both. But don't jump to conclusions yet. Focus on the financial evidence first. That night, I continued my investigation. Using Andrew's laptop while he showered, I discovered emails confirming his participation in online poker tournaments with buy-ins of thousands of dollars. His browser history, which he had attempted to clear but failed to do completely, showed visits to sports betting sites and online casinos. Most disturbing was the discovery of a rental property lease agreement with Andrew listed as the tenant. A downtown luxury apartment I had never heard of rented 6 months ago. Was it a place to gamble undisturbed, a love nest for an affair, or simply a bolt hole where he could escape the pressure of his mounting debts? The deeper I dug, the more questions emerged. Was Andrew's gambling addiction driving him to these deceptions, or was there something more? And what was Patricia's role in all this? Was she merely enabling her son, trying to protect him from consequences? Or was she actively helping him deceive me? For a week, I lived a double life. During the day, I was the competent marketing executive and seemingly happy wife. At night, while Andrew slept or worked late, I pieced together the extent of his deception, building a comprehensive picture of our financial situation. The truth was devastating. Between the gambling losses, credit card debt, and second mortgage, Andrew had accumulated over $150,000 in debt. Our savings were depleted, our investment accounts raided. The home we had lovingly chosen together was at risk of foreclosure due to missed payments on the second mortgage. All this time, Patricia had known. She had watched me plan for our future, knowing that future was being gambled away by her son. She had listened to my hopes for starting a family, aware that the financial foundation for that family was crumbling. She had hugged me and called me daughter while helping her son hide his addiction and decimate our financial security. The betrayal cut deep, a wound that grew more painful as the full picture emerged. But with knowledge came resolve. I would not be a victim in this situation. I would confront them both and take control of my future, whatever that might look like. After gathering all the evidence, I planned my confrontation carefully. I decided to invite both Andrew and Patricia to dinner at our home, creating a setting where neither could easily escape the conversation. The irony of hosting them at the house that Andrew had secretly mortgaged wasn't lost on me. I spent Saturday preparing Andrew's favourite meal, beef bourguignon, with crusty bread and roasted vegetables. For dessert, a chocolate soufflé that Patricia had taught me to make. The effort felt both meditative and symbolic, a final act of care before everything changed. I set the dining room table with our wedding china crystal glasses and silver candlesticks that had been a gift from Patricia on our first anniversary. Each item now carried a bittersweet significance, representing the marriage and family relationships I had believed in so completely. Andrew seemed nervous when he arrived home to find the table set formally. "What's the occasion?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Just felt like doing something nice," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Patricia will be here at 7. Mom's coming. You didn't mention that. I invited her this morning. Thought it would be nice for the three of us to have dinner together." Andrew's expression flickered with unease, but he nodded. "Great, I'll open some wine." Patricia arrived precisely at 7, bearing flowers and a bottle of expensive champagne. Her overly bright smile and nervous chatter suggested she sensed something was off. "These flowers are gorgeous," I said, taking them from her. "I'll put them in water. I thought the table could use some colour," she replied, glancing around. "Everything looks so lovely, Elise. You've gone to a lot of trouble." "Nothing but the best for family." I said the word family tasting bitter on my tongue. Throughout the appetizer course, I maintained light conversation, asking about their weeks and sharing amusing anecdotes from work. Andrew relaxed visibly, apparently deciding his fears were unfounded. Patricia remained on edge, her laughter too loud, her gestures slightly exaggerated. After serving the main course, I excused myself briefly and returned with a folder containing printed bank statements, credit card bills, mortgage documents, and screenshots of Andrew's gambling activity. I placed it on the table between their plates. "Would either of you like to tell me about these?" I asked calmly. Andrew's face drained of colour. Patricia froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. "What are those?" Andrew asked, though his expression made clear he knew exactly what they were. "Evidence," I replied, "of gambling debt, a second mortgage I never signed for, and a conspiracy between the two of you to hide it all from me." Patricia set down her fork with a shaking hand. "Elise, I can explain." "I'm sure you both can," I said. "I've been waiting to hear these explanations for a week now, ever since I overheard your conversation at Patricia's house." Andrew's eyes widened. "You were there? You heard us talking?" "Yes, I came to bring cookies. Isn't that ridiculous?" I was worried about Patricia feeling under the weather, so I baked her favourite cookies. Meanwhile, you two were discussing how to keep hiding the fact that you've gambled away our life savings. I opened the folder and began laying out documents methodically as if presenting a case to clients. $150,000 in gambling losses, a second mortgage on our home with my forged signature, maxed out credit cards, an apartment downtown I knew nothing about. Did I miss anything important? Andrew stared at the evidence before him, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "Elise, this isn't what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like a gambling addiction that's destroyed our financial security combined with fraud and a betrayal by the two people I trusted most." Patricia leaned forward. "Elise, dear, Andrew has been going through a difficult time. These investments didn't pan out the way he expected, but he's been working so hard to turn things around." "Investments?" I repeated incredulously. "Is that what we're calling online poker tournaments and sports betting now?" "They're calculated risks," Andrew insisted. "I have a system. I've been close to a major win several times. Once I hit it, everything will be paid back with interest." "That's addiction talking, not reason," I said. "And you?" I turned to Patricia, my voice breaking slightly. "How could you help him hide this from me after everything we've shared? After you held me while I cried over our miscarriage? How could you participate in this deception?" Patricia's face crumpled. "I was trying to protect you both. Andrew promised he would stop, that he would get help. I believed him." "You weren't protecting me," I said. "You were protecting him from consequences at my expense." "I was trying to save your marriage," Patricia protested. "Andrew made mistakes, but he loves you. I thought if I could help him fix this before you found out, you wouldn't have to go through this pain." My carefully maintained composure began to crack. "This isn't love, Patricia. Love doesn't forge signatures or gamble away a shared future without consent. And your loyalty should have included honesty with me, not just blind protection of your son." Andrew reached for my hand across the table. I pulled away. "Elise, please, I can fix this. I'll get help, real help this time. I've been researching Gamblers Anonymous meetings." "Since when?" I asked. He hesitated. "Since Mom threatened to tell you if I didn't stop. Not because it was right, or because you loved me enough to be honest. Only because you were afraid of being caught." "No, that's not it," he insisted. "I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see me like this as a failure. But you were fine with me finding out when the house was foreclosed on, or when debt collectors started calling. What was your end game here, Andrew?" He had no answer, just dropped his head into his hands. Patricia tried again. Elise, gambling addiction is a disease. Andrew needs support, not condemnation. We can work through this as a family. The word family ignited something in me, a controlled anger that had been building all week. A family is built on trust, Patricia. You and Andrew shattered that trust. You watched me plan for our future, knowing that future was being destroyed by his addiction and your complicity. I stood up suddenly, unable to sit at this table anymore. I want you both to leave, now. Elise, please. Andrew stood too, reaching for me. Let's talk about this. We can figure it out together. I've done all the figuring out I need to do, I said, stepping back from him. I have copies of everything. I know about the forged signature, the secret apartment, all of it. Now I need time to decide what to do with this information. Patricia gathered her purse, tears streaming down her face. Elise, I know you're hurt and angry, but please don't make any hasty decisions. Andrew is sick. He needs help. Yes, he does, I agreed. But that's not my responsibility right now. My priority is protecting myself from further damage. Please go. They left together, Andrew looking back desperately from the doorway, while Patricia ushered him toward her car. I closed the door behind them and locked it, then slid down against it onto the floor. The house felt suddenly large and empty, the remnants of our dinner a sad tableau of broken trust and shattered dreams. That night alone in what had once been our bedroom, I allowed myself to fully feel the grief of losing not just my marriage, but the entire future I had planned. I cried until exhaustion finally claimed me, falling asleep as dawn broke, illuminating a world that would never look the same again. The next morning, despite little sleep, I moved with determined purpose. This was no longer about shock or grief, but about taking decisive action to protect myself. I contacted a financial advisor who specialized in helping clients recover from financially abusive relationships. The first priority is damage control, Maureen advised during our emergency Sunday consultation. We need to safeguard what assets remain and establish clear boundaries. Under her guidance, I began the process of financial triage. We reviewed all accounts, identifying which were joint and which were in my name only. She advised me to immediately move half of the remaining money from joint accounts into a new account at a different bank, one Andrew had no relationship with. This isn't about hiding assets, she explained. It's about ensuring you have access to funds he can't deplete while you sort things out. Half is legally and ethically appropriate. Next, I contacted a divorce attorney recommended by Maureen, setting up a Monday morning appointment. The word divorce felt surreal as it left my lips, but I knew it was necessary. Even if Andrew got treatment for his addiction, the trust was irreparably broken. The forgery alone was grounds for criminal charges, not just divorce. By Sunday afternoon, Andrew began calling and texting incessantly. I ignored most messages, but finally responded with a terse text. I need space. Do not come to the house. I'll contact you when I'm ready to talk. He didn't respect my boundaries. Sunday evening, he showed up at our door, eyes red from crying, clutching flowers that reminded me painfully of the ones I'd brought to Patricia's house just days earlier. Please, Elise, he begged when I opened the door but blocked his entry. Just hear me out. I've been sick, not thinking clearly. I've called a treatment centre. I'm checking in tomorrow. I'm glad you're getting help, I said, maintaining my distance. But that doesn't change what you did. I know, he nodded desperately. I know it doesn't, but I love you. These past few days without you have been hell. I'll do anything to make this right. There is no making this right, I said firmly. You forged my signature, Andrew. You put our home at risk. You lied to me for months, maybe years, with your mother's help. At the mention of Patricia, his expression shifted slightly. Mum was just trying to help. She thought she was protecting our marriage. By keeping me in the dark while our finances collapsed, that's not protection, it's manipulation. Andrew's shoulders slumped. Can I at least come in and get some clothes? I've been staying at Mom's, but I need my work suits. I hesitated, then stepped aside. You have 20 minutes. I'll be watching. As he gathered his things, I noticed him taking small personal items beyond clothing, including his grandfather's watch and several framed photos. I said nothing, mentally cataloguing what he took while maintaining a cold distance. Where will you go after treatment? I asked as he prepared to leave. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe the apartment downtown for a while. The apartment I hadn't known existed until a week ago. The secret place he had established as what a gambling den, a bachelor pad, the possibilities made me sick. How long have you been gambling? I asked the question that had been burning inside me. Andrew paused at the door, suitcase in hand. It started after the miscarriage, he said quietly. I couldn't sleep. I was browsing online one night and found a poker site. It was just a distraction at first, something to occupy my mind when the grief was too much. The miscarriage. 2 years ago. All this time, while I thought we were healing together, he had been spiraling into addiction, creating a secret life apart from our marriage. Why didn't you talk to me? We could have faced it together. You were in so much pain already, he said. I didn't want to burden you with mine too. After he left, Patricia called. I let it go to voicemail, but listened to her message later. Elise, I know you're angry and you have every right to be, but please don't throw away your marriage without giving Andrew a chance to make amends. He's sick, not malicious. He's checking into treatment tomorrow. Please at least talk to him when he completes the program. If not for his sake, then for the love we've shared as family. Her plea stirred complicated emotions. Part of me still loved Patricia, still valued the relationship we had built. But the betrayal was too significant to ignore. She had chosen her son over honesty with me, actively participating in deceiving someone she claimed to love as a daughter. Over the next few days, I took concrete steps to protect myself. I met with the divorce attorney who outlined the process and helped me understand my options. I filed for legal separation, a first step that would provide some financial protection while I decided whether to proceed with divorce. I documented all the evidence of Andrew's gambling and forgery, securing it with my attorney. I froze our remaining joint credit cards and accounts, ensuring no new debt could be accumulated in my name. I contacted the bank about the fraudulent second mortgage, initiating an investigation into the forged signature. When I finally told close friends and family what was happening, the responses were mixed. Some, like Megan, supported my decision to separate unequivocally. Others urged forgiveness, suggesting that with treatment, Andrew could recover and we could rebuild. Addiction is a disease, my mother reminded me during a tearful phone call. Would you leave him if he had cancer? If he had cancer and lied about it while draining our life savings, yes, I replied. This isn't just about the gambling. It's about the lies, the forgery, the complete betrayal of trust. And Patricia's involvement makes it even worse. My father, typically reserved with advice, surprised me with his vehemence. He forged your signature on a mortgage, Elise. That's fraud. You could have ended up homeless without ever knowing why. As word spread through our social circle, I discovered I wasn't alone. 2 friends confided similar experiences with financially deceptive partners. Their stories strengthened my resolve. This wasn't about abandoning someone in need. It was about recognizing when trust had been too severely damaged to repair. Patricia continued reaching out, alternating between guilt-inducing pleas and offers of financial help. I have savings, she said in one message. Let me help pay back what Andrew took. We can keep the house. I finally agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop. She arrived looking older, somehow the weight of the situation evident in new lines around her eyes. I won't take your money, I told her flatly. This isn't about the money, it's about trust. I know, she acknowledged, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. I betrayed your trust. I've been asking myself why I did it, how I could justify keeping such secrets from you. And, I prompted when she paused, I convinced myself I was protecting both of you. Andrew swore each time would be the last, that he was about to win big and fix everything before you ever knew. I believed him because I wanted to. Because he's your son, I said. Yes, she admitted. But also because I've been there. His father had the same problem. I spent years covering for him, making excuses, hiding bills. When I finally left, it was too late to salvage much of anything. I thought I could help Andrew avoid that fate. The revelation about Andrew's father stunned me. You never told me his dad had a gambling problem. You said he died of heart failure. He did, Patricia said quietly. After losing everything, including his family, the stress triggered a massive heart attack. I should have warned you about the family history, but I truly believed Andrew was different. We talked for nearly 2 hours, painful truths emerging that reshaped my understanding of both Andrew and Patricia. By the end, I felt a measure of compassion for her position, trapped between loyalty to her son and honesty with me. But understanding didn't equate to forgiveness, not yet. I need time, Patricia, I told her as we prepared to leave. I can't have either of you in my life right now. She nodded sadly. I understand. But Elise, whatever you decide about Andrew, please know that I truly do love you. like the daughter I never had. I hope someday you can forgive me. As I drove home, I reflected on the strength I was discovering within myself. Each boundary set, each difficult conversation, faced each decision, made independently, reinforced that I could survive this betrayal. I would rebuild my life with or without Andrew and Patricia in it. 6 months passed each day, bringing small steps toward healing and independence. I had moved from our house, which was now in the foreclosure process, despite my efforts to save it into a cozy apartment closer to my office. The space was smaller, but entirely mine, decorated simply with items that held no painful memories. Therapy had become a cornerstone of my recovery. Dr. Harmon, a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma, helped me process the complex grief of losing not just my marriage, but my sense of reality. You're mourning the relationship you thought you had, she explained during one session. The marriage you believed in never actually existed. This framework helped me understand the disorienting sense of unreality that sometimes washed over me. I wasn't just grieving Andrew, but the entire future I had planned and the person I thought he was. The financial recovery proved slower, but steady. My income as a marketing executive was substantial enough to maintain a comfortable lifestyle, even with the legal fees associated with the divorce proceedings. I had worked with financial advisors to establish new accounts, rebuild my credit score, which had been damaged by Andrew's actions, and create a personal financial plan that prioritized security. The process taught me valuable lessons about financial independence. I realized how much I had abdicated responsibility by letting Andrew handle our investments and major financial decisions. Now I took pride in understanding every aspect of my finances, from retirement planning to investment strategies. Financial literacy is a form of self-protection, Maureen told me during our last consultation. You've turned a terrible situation into an opportunity for empowerment. Andrew had completed a 60-day residential treatment program for gambling addiction and was now living in a sober living facility, attending regular Gamblers Anonymous meetings. Through his lawyer, he had expressed remorse and a desire to make amends both financially and emotionally. I had agreed to a mediated discussion about the divorce terms, but maintained firm boundaries about personal contact. The forgery charges had been a complicated decision. Ultimately, I chose not to pursue criminal charges in exchange for Andrew's agreement to assume full responsibility for the debts he had accumulated, including the fraudulent second mortgage. His recovery seemed genuine. According to his lawyer, he had secured a position at a smaller firm with reduced responsibilities and stress, allowing him to focus on maintaining his sobriety from gambling. He had sold his luxury car and other assets to begin repaying debts, including those to his mother, who had apparently loaned him significant sums before I discovered the addiction. Patricia and I had cautiously re-established limited contact. After 3 months of complete separation, I had agreed to occasional coffee meetings. The relationship was fundamentally altered, the easy intimacy replaced by careful conversation and acknowledged boundaries. But there was also a new honesty between us that had never existed before. I enabled Andrew his entire life, she admitted during one of our conversations. When he struggled in school, I made excuses instead of getting him help. When he had money problems in college, I bailed him out silently. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was actually preventing him from developing resilience. Her insights into her own behavior helped me understand the dysfunctional patterns that had contributed to our situation. Patricia had begun attending Al-Anon meetings for families of addicts, learning about codependency and enabling behaviors. The hardest lesson, she told me, was accepting that helping sometimes means allowing natural consequences to occur. I robbed Andrew of the opportunity to face his problems earlier when they were smaller and more manageable. My own support system had expanded beyond Megan to include a women's group specifically for those recovering from financial infidelity and betrayal. The stories shared there normalized my experience and provided practical advice for rebuilding. Through this group, I began volunteering with a financial literacy program for women, teaching basic skills that I had myself only recently mastered. The experience of helping others find their financial footing gave purpose to my pain and reinforced my own learning. You've turned your wound into wisdom, one woman told me after a workshop on recognizing financial red flags in relationships. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, I found myself increasingly at peace with my decision. Despite Andrew's recovery efforts, the breach of trust had been too severe to repair. We might eventually develop a cordial relationship, but romantic reconciliation was not on the horizon. I had begun reconnecting with old interests and discovering new ones. I joined a hiking group that met on weekends, finding solace in nature and the uncomplicated camaraderie of fellow hikers. I took a pottery class, enjoying the tactile satisfaction of creating something with my hands. Small pleasures I had overlooked during my marriage became significant sources of joy. There were still difficult days, moments when grief would ambush me unexpectedly, triggered by a song or the sight of a couple holding hands, times when anger would resurface, hot and righteous, at the thought of Patricia and Andrew's deception. But these episodes became less frequent and less overwhelming with time. I had even cautiously begun considering dating again, though I hadn't yet taken that step. A colleague had expressed interest, and while I wasn't ready, the interaction had reminded me that my capacity for connection remained intact despite the betrayal. The most profound change was in my relationship with myself. I had discovered a resilience I hadn't known I possessed. The woman who had blindly trusted her husband with all financial matters, who had believed in the perfect mother-in-law relationship, was gone. In her place was someone more discerning, more self-reliant, and paradoxically more capable of authentic connection, precisely because she no longer needed others to complete her. Trust your instincts. I now told the women in my financial literacy workshops. If something feels wrong, pay attention to that feeling. It's not paranoia, it's self-protection. I had ignored those instincts when Andrew's behavior first changed, dismissing my concerns out of loyalty and love. I wouldn't make that mistake again, nor would I ever again surrender my financial independence, even in the context of partnership. As I settled into my new life, I began to see that what had felt like an ending was actually a beginning. The path forward was uncertain, but filled with possibilities I hadn't considered within the constraints of my marriage. Freedom, I discovered, could be both terrifying and exhilarating. One evening, sitting on the small balcony of my apartment watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. My life hadn't turned out as planned, but perhaps it had turned out as needed. The betrayal that had shattered my world had also freed me from illusions, forcing growth that might otherwise have taken decades. I thought of something Dr. Harmon had told me. Sometimes the most painful breaks create space for the most beautiful rebuilding. I was rebuilding piece by piece a life that was authentically mine, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely excited about what might come next. Have you ever faced a betrayal that forced you to completely rebuild your life? If you have, I hope my story offers some comfort in knowing you're not alone. The journey through deception and back to trust is incredibly difficult, but also deeply transformative. Please share your experiences in the comments below, like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need to hear this message of hope after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worst moments can become the foundation for your strongest self.